Well, good morning. I'm working on duplicating this neat little medal. I call it my marksmanship award. It actually has a little ray gun that lights up and makes fun noises. And it's hanging from something very close to my standard medals hardware, but it's doing 3 or 4 things that are a little above and beyond, I think, the things that I've shown you on the medals before. So I'm just gonna let you watch me build this, and I'll talk a little bit about it as I go. Well, let's start with the tools I'm going to use. Since I'm going to be bending some jewelry links, I need a couple pairs of snipe nose pliers. I find for cutting the small pieces of wood, just a pair of wire cutters works the best. And I have to drill a couple of small holes, so I've got the tiniest bit, I think this is a 1/16 bit, in my little portable drill, along with a sacrificial piece of wood to back it so I don't drill through the table. And I need to smooth some edges, so rather than using sandpaper, I pick up throwaway emery boards at the dollar store, and I use those for small sanding projects just because they're a little easier to work with. As far as materials go, I obviously need my little ray gun, and this is a keychain that I think I picked up for $3 or $4. It's very cute. The batteries are replaceable. It wasn't easy, but you've got some screws here that you can loosen, pop up, and use as the small little button watch batteries. I need a pin, so you can pin it onto yourself. A couple of different sizes of ribbon. We're actually going to layer up the ribbon to make it look like a much larger ribbon, but this is one that I salvaged from something. And it was in my ribbon basket. And then again, this is one that I've had, a little narrower, it'll look good. I need something to stiffen it. I like to work in wood, so this is a wooden coffee stirrer. You could pick these up at your local barista. You can also go someplace like Smart & Final and get a box of, it was over 1,000 for less than $5. I use these for all sorts of things, so I've got a box sitting next to my workbench. Then I need some little links to suspend this from. So I've got 4 large rings and I've got 2 small ones, and remember I'll need my pointy pliers to bend those in and out. First thing I'll do is cut the wood to length, so I need it to be just a little smaller than the ribbon is wide, so I'm going to mark that with my thumb. Take my wire cutters, I just clip that off, and that does a great job. It's a little sharp on the edges, but I'm going to take care of that. I need 2 of these, one for the top, one for the bottom. That's different from the way we normally make medals, because normally the bottom of the ribbon gets gathered up through a big ring. In this case, I need something to suspend this from, so I'm going to need a little piece of stiffener to do exactly that. A little quick sanding on the ends here, again with my emery board. These aren't really going to be seen, but I don't like them to stick out or catch. They can catch the edge of the ribbon sometimes and fray it. So just a tiny amount of sanding on that. And that's really all I need that for. The one that the ray gun is suspended from is going to have these little links going through it, so I need a couple of holes. So that's why I pulled out my drill. These don't have to be exact, but I'm going to keep them pretty close to the end. If you drill into a piece of wood beneath the thing you're drilling into, it'll keep the hole clean. It won't tear out in the back, but it can do that. See, I just splintered that. Because it's so thin, we can run into a problem with that. So I'm going to try the other one. If you let the drill kind of eat its way through instead of pushing it, you can help avoid some of those, but this is pretty thin, delicate wood, so you just have to kind of deal with it. Fortunately, these are cheap enough that you can make a lot of pieces from that. Okay, so add to your list of tools that we're playing with, a pair of scissors. We'll also need glue for our material. You forget about these things when you're playing with it. I cut the wide piece of ribbon all right at length, and now I'm just cutting a short one to the same length of the narrower piece. And we'll just kind of line that up. I'm not actually going to sew these together at all. I'm just going to loop them and let the glue at the end be my what's holding them in place. So I'll take a little super glue. Remember, super glue, less is more. So I'm going to do a series of little dots across here. Whee! That was too much. And I'm going to do a little bit across here to hold this one in the center, hold the small piece. So that goes on there. This is gel type super glue, so I've got a little bit of working time with it. Those line up. And I'll press it, singing my little song. I typically hold these for 40 seconds just to make sure that everything dries. Sometimes working with the fabric, it will get into your fingers, so I kind of let my fingers dance. Keep moving. Oh. Now notice the one with the holes isn't the one I'm gluing to. I'm going to put this one at the bottom. I will glue it to one side just to keep it in place. And then I will take my rings, and I think of this as our chainmail twist. You can see these aren't completely put together here. There we go. So to correct that, you twist toward yourself while you're pressing inward a little bit, and then I'll twist them back together again while putting a little inward pressure, and they lined up much nicer again. So I'm going to twist them open so that I can get them in on this. And those two are going to go through the little board. The other ones need to go onto the little gun itself. So one goes around the barrel. You know you're close enough when you put them together if the ends rub on each other, and that gives you a nice tight fit. And the other one's going in the back. There is a ring on here, but I want them to look all uniform, so I'm going to take this one off and I'll save it for another project. And I'll take one of these. Okay. So this has enough time to dry. I'm going to turn it over. See, while it dried, it just fell off. Okay, I had a little trouble with the super glue. It was just not working with that ribbon. So I pulled up my big glue gun, and that worked beautifully. So now, this is the back. So all these stains you can see from the super glue aren't going to matter. You're never going to see it. So we're going to loop this over. Okay. And I'm going to now glue these two pieces together. You get to work much faster with super glue because it sets up so quickly, or with hot glue it sets up much more quickly than the super glue does, which I like. Have to be careful as you squeeze a little of it out. It can give you some really nice little burns, so I'm going to use a little coffee stir and let that pick up the melted glue instead of my fingers. So again, this is going to be the back. Front's pristine, lovely. Fold that so it's lined up the way it should be. Using these little pin backs, you've got a rotating little lock here, and when it's in the open position, that should be down. That way, if it accidentally opens up, the weight of the metal holds it in place. So knowing that, knowing that's the top, I'm going to place it like this. So we'll put a little hot glue on it. And center that up. Now the bottom one could be glued in place, but I looked at my original and it's actually sufficient to put it in place. I see where it's going to be, and I'm going to work the ends of the link through the holes that were there. So I'm going to use an awl to help me punch these little holes just to get it through the fabric. Nice thing about working with something like that is you're not actually cutting through the fabric, so you won't leave a frayed hole. You're just pushing the threads aside. If you work from the front, any problems you have in the back, because it's catching a little on the threads, is hidden. There we go. So that worked through pretty easily. Do the same thing on the other side. All I'm doing is kind of taking a look at roughly where that hole is, feeling for it with the awl, and then rolling it back and forth to open a little bit of a hole in it. There, I'm through front and back now. That makes it pretty easy. I'll use my pliers to close the links. Now to hide those edges, I'm just going to rotate them so they're in the back. So all we have is smooth wire in the front. And we're going to take these little tiny rings, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to open them up and use them to link my little space gun here to the front. Think this through a little bit so the orientation's right, or they'll be pointing the wrong way. Hopefully I've done it right. Yay, that's the way it should hang. And now we'll do the back. I'm a big guy with big hands, and sometimes working with these little things can be a challenge. That's why the little pointy-nosed pliers are nice. You may have noticed that mine actually bent a little bit. I just find it more comfortable. I'm sure it's some sort of ergonomic design. Okay, so there we go. Remember that little spacer is not held in by anything other than the rings now going through it. I like the brighter white ribbon on that. I think it stands out nicely. Okay. Gun still fires, which is the fun part. And there, we're done with our medal. So hopefully this will give you some ideas of other things you can hang from here. Anything that you don't hang from a single ring in the middle, you can put whatever rings you need on just a little stiffener hidden in the bottom. It also doesn't gather the ribbon, So you get this kind of squarer look, which I find kind of nice, and it's different and it's distinct from the ones we normally do. So a few bumps along the way, but all in all, pretty easy, fun project.